There we go. Okay. Unit 2, Lesson 2, right? Unit 2 is just basically ecology. Lesson 2 is about something called the levels of organization. How we organize, what do we name things, okay? It's about how things are classified. Um, yeah, well, hey, Luis, I hear you, man. Dude, I see you say I'm fat and tacos sound good. Yeah, man. I tell you what, dude, they really were good, man. And I'm not going to stand up and show y'all my belly here, but you can definitely tell I had quite a few of them tacos, man. So I feel you this morning, Luis. Anyway, let's carry on. Is how we organize things in nature or in ecosystems. Y'all should remember this sequence or whatever. Cells come together to form tissues. Tissues come together to form organs. Organs form organ systems, and you have an organism. But then you see it carries on to some other words, and that's basically what we're going to describe today. There's 9 slides here, guys. I may only do 5 because your assignment is going to be on not this section anyway. Your assignment today and tomorrow will actually be on organisms and their environment, right? That'll be your assignment for today and tomorrow. But I'm just briefly going over this, and then we'll finish it next week. So just bear with me while we talk about it a little bit, okay? All right, you will have some important vocabulary for this new section. Organism, species, population, community or biological community, ecosystem, biosphere, which you've already heard, and then you'll have 2 new ones as well called a habitat and a niche, okay? Levels of organization. How would we organize all of this? What would we call all of this is the question. Now, biologists do study the levels of organization and what organisms are made of, which technically they should be made of cells. They can be animal cells, plant cells, or bacterial cells. And then how they all fit into the ecosystem, where are they at in the food web, where are they at in the passing on of energy? Are they producers, consumers? Are they things of that nature? And they try to rank things or organize things from the simplest to the most complex, right? Like we did yesterday, cells come together to form tissues, tissues form organs, organs form organ systems, and then all these organ systems will come together to form an organism. They also do study how all these organisms interact with each other, and we'll get to that later, like maybe even Tuesday of next week, okay? So don't sweat that right now. Now, I'm going to start you off with one of something. One of anything is called a species, right? It's also known as an organism. Y'all know when you have cells, they come together to form tissues, tissues form organs, organs form organ systems, and then that organ system will form an organism, or all the different organ systems will form an organism. And one of an organism is simply defined as a species. And remember, the definition of a species is it can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. That takes us back to that whole concept of would a lion and a tiger be the same species? No. Yes, they can interbreed, they produce a liger, but that liger is not fertile. Now, is a lion and a lion the same species? Yes, they can interbreed and they produce a baby lion, and that baby lion is fertile. All right, now species can be a multitude of words. It can be a plant, animal, or a bacteria, right? Every one of these organisms that you see in this background is its own unique species. And we consider it a species or an organism because there is only one of it. So the next question, I want you to remember this little sequence, by the way, S, P, C, E, B. That'll help you remember how you organize these things. One of something is called a species. But now when you have more than one of the same species, like 2 lions, right? What they'll say you have is a population. When you have 2 or more of the same species and they have to be in the same area at the same time, that's important, right? When you have 2 or more of the same species in the same area at the same time, then you have a population. That can be, an examples of that can be 2 cats, 2 dogs, 2 dandelions, 2 clownfish, whatever, okay? Could be anything. If you've got 1 cat in Lumberton and 1 cat in St. Paul's, you don't have a population of cats. But now if you've got 20 cats in St. Paul's that are running around downtown just mobbing, right? Then you've got a population of cats. you have to have a population to reproduce. You got to have more than one to reproduce, because you can't reproduce by yourself. So you do have to have a population to be able to reproduce, and reproduction is essential to the continuation of a species. It's required. If you don't have a population, that species could eventually go extinct. So first off, you have a species, that's one of something. When you have more than one of the same species in the same area at the same time, you have population. All right. So now, for you to be able to go to, the next step, which is C, you have to have two populations that are different species, and that'll give you a community or a biological community. Now, I do want you to notice this picture in the background is a caterpillar, and it actually goes into a cocoon and will come out as a monarch butterfly. That's what this next bullet is related to. Sometimes organisms can compete for resources if they're the same species. Like deer, I guess, compete for grasses and berries in the woods. They're all foragers. They all look for things like that. And that competition can determine how far apart they live or how large their population becomes. Some species have got adaptations that help reduce competition, because competition for food is a bad thing. For example, a caterpillar and a butterfly. A caterpillar and a butterfly are the same species. Ironically, they are. They just have different life stages, like a maggot and a fly, right? A maggot is a fly, right? Whether you know it or not, it's the same species. It's just at different stages in its life. And a caterpillar, when it's young, eats leaves on a tree. And then eventually, after it goes through becoming a cocoon or going through the cocoon stage, it comes out as a monarch butterfly. And it eats things like nectar from flowers and stuff like that. So, you got one life stage eating leaves, and you got one life stage eating nectar. So it helps reduce competition between species or organisms in that species, okay? Makes it a lot easier for them to all have food, right? Everybody has food, and you don't run out of food. All right, now the next level, which I said was a community, right? Anytime you have one of something, it's a species. So one bee, right, here would be a species. But since you've got many bees here, I think this is actually murder hornets, right? This is wild. I think I got a picture of a murder hornet here. Y'all know about those. They're actually supposed to kill bees. And bees are essential to the continuation of plant species because they're involved in pollination. So anyway, you have one of something, that would be that murder hornet, that's a species, and it is attacking this population of bees because you have more than one bee. But when you have a population of murder hornets that interact with a population of bees, you now have a biological community because you have two different populations that are different species, and they're in the same area at the same time. Now, one population can be a predator and one can be a prey. And sometimes some populations, just say population A if it's a predator, and population B if it's a prey, population A can cause fluctuations or changes in one population size from time to time. So if there's a bunch of predators, there's not going to be a lot of prey. So if you have an increase in the predator, you'll have a decrease in the prey, right? Same opposite direction too. If you have a decrease in the predator, you'll start to see an increase in the amount of prey. So populations and communities are interdependent. They all depend on one another. Even a population of bees can affect the population size of flowers, because the population of bees, you have an increase of bees, you would have an increase in the amount of flower population because they're assisting in pollination. Y'all remember the murder hornets that were going to kill all the bees? I hadn't heard anything about murder hornets in a while. People said it was a hoax. People said it was another wild invasive species from China, I think. Matter of fact, you might have read something on an invasive species if you did that ecology article. An invasive species was on the list that I talked about that I'd created from that article yesterday. So maybe that'll help some of you if you hadn't done that article yet. All right, and then finally, right, this is the last one I'm gonna do for today. This is slide 7. I think I'll stop here. But let me tell you about what an ecosystem is. All right, one of something is a species. Two or more of the same species is a population. Two populations that are different species that live in the same area at the same time is a community. Now here you probably got a population of fish out here. You got a population of trees here, look like palm trees. You got a human population which is around here. And these things are all interdependent. But we've not talked about any of the abiotic factors. When we talk about a community, we're only talking about the biotic things. And I can't write biotic with my mouse, so y'all are just going to have to bear with me. That's the best biotic I got, okay? We've only talked about the biotic things at the community level. But when we start to add in the abiotic things, that is when we reach the ecosystem level. The ecosystem level includes all of the air that you see here. It includes all of the water that you see out here that these fish are living in. It includes the soil, which you see right here by the beach, right? And to be honest, I wished I was out on this beach this morning. That would probably be much nicer than this classroom. And when you talk about the sunlight, the temperature, and precipitation, you're talking about the entire ecosystem. And there are two types of ecosystems on this planet. You have terrestrial ecosystems, which is land, right, and the entire earth. And then you have aquatic ecosystems. That means ecosystems that are out in the water. Now, there are two different types of ecosystems that are aquatic. You have freshwater, which are your ponds, streams, lakes, and rivers. And then you have marine ecosystems, which are your salt waters, such as your oceans and some seas. The Mediterranean Sea has a high level of salt in it, just FYI. Your marine ecosystems do make up about 70 to 75% of your Earth's surface. And y'all should know that because, majority of Earth, when you look at it, is water. So all this is today, just simple levels of organization, how we organize things from the simplest to the most complex. One of something is an organism or a species. You have two or more of the same species together at the same time in the same area, then you have a population. If you have a population of cats interacting with a population of dogs in the same area at the same time, then you have a community. But when we start to talk about the air that surrounds those cats and dogs, the soil that they're walking on, the water that they drink, the sunlight that's beaming down on them, now you start to talk about the entire ecosystem. Okay. And then when you add up all the ecosystems on the planet, you'll reach the biosphere level. And that was what we talked about yesterday, the portion of Earth that supports all life. But now I'll talk about this